still defrosting after the ham. I'm getting ready for the peas. So I'm going to pull the seal off and pull the ice out like I've done a couple of the other batches because it's getting late and I want to get this next one going quickly. I'm going to see if I can get that ice out real quick. It's only had about half-hour defrost time. So, and as I've mentioned before, I don't really like taking the seal off unless I really need to. And I don't really consider being in a hurry to do this really need to, but I want to get the next one going so I can keep on track for the videos. So, make sure I wipe that. And I'm going to be putting it over on this table portion, so I'm wiping it down so that I don't pick anything up off the table onto it. I'm going to pull the seal off very gently. Again, being as careful as I can with the seal because I just don't want to damage it in any way. Let's see if we can grab any of that ice out. I'm going to pop these off of there because they'll be in the way for pulling the ice past there. If it weren't for trying to keep up with the timing of this series, I wouldn't do this. In fact, I might be able to pull that out. Yep. I'm not a big fan of pulling the seal off unless absolutely necessary. It's just adding for risk for a vacuum leak later. I just don't see that much advantage of saving a couple of hours. Okay. And so if you're in a really big hurry, you can pull the ice out. I try not to because I don't want to take the seal off. But it does work. And it does speed it up because then you only need to get it thawed enough to get the ice to pop free from the sides. And that doesn't really take very long. So, trying to see along the top. And that piece of ice is free from the top. Okay, now I just have the ice on the bottom. Direct that into the bucket. So all of the ice is out. There's still a little bit of water in there, but very little. I'm going to rotate this so if there's any on top, it will slide off. I'm going to go ahead and use a couple of paper towels to kind of mop everything out real quick. And if at any time I ever see any kind of film of anything come out of there, then I'll just stop and clean everything, but never have. Use the little, oops, there's still a piece of ice on the grabbers. Okay, use the little grabber and grab a paper towel, and I'm gonna come across the top, make sure I got any water off there. Yeah, it seems pretty dry. And honestly, if you were to put a batch of food in here, so if you put a batch of food in your freeze dryer and it's not frozen, perhaps it's room temperature, you can put it in there. If you can see through the front of there, you'll notice that it will start to grow snow along the top. I've had mine snow inside of here. Beautiful snow crystals along the edges and all up along the top. That only happens if I put in room temperature or warmer food. If it's pre-frozen, it doesn't do that. So the amount of water that's on this barrel right now is nowhere near the amount of water you would get just simply by putting room temperature food in there. You put a batch of room temperature soup or something in there, that is going to get a lot of ice crystals along the walls before it has a chance to freeze. So I'm not going to worry if there's teeny little spots of water on there, because by comparison to putting a warm thing in there, it's really not going to be any water in there. All right, I'm going to put this back in. There was some ice inside the flutes on there. I was just getting that out of there. Usually it has time to melt, but not this time. So put that back in place. Okay, same with the other side. Doesn't seem to be anything in that one. Okay. Need to put the seal on. So as soon as this seal's back on, it's ready to pre-freeze. All right, I'm going to use the door itself to finish seating the seal. So very gently, slowly. Okay. Now, I'll get this in place. And I'll take my damp paper towel and carefully wipe that seal, and where the seal hits the door. Okay, and that's got a beautiful ring all the way around it. With that, I'm going to restart it for pre-freezing for the next batch. The next batch is just frozen peas. We bought 10 pounds of frozen peas. I'm just going to load them on trays. Hopefully all 10 pounds will fit, because peas are kind of round and they tend to roll off. So if it doesn't fit, I'll put as much as will fit. We're already ahead on the batches. We had, I think, 11 pounds for eggs. Then we had 12 pounds for scallop potatoes. So for the 500 pounds, we've got a couple of pounds leeway. We'll get this pre-freezing and get things loaded. I'm going to start it. I'm using custom. You could use the start. And again, mine's a 5-year-old machine. The modern software is so much better. Lots of other choices for what you're drying. On mine, it's pretty much all just time-based. Okay, close the drain and continue. The freeze dryer's had a chance to cool now. It's pre-cooled to below 15 degrees. I'm going to get the peas on the tray and get them in there. These are just store-bought frozen peas. If you had a garden and you had your own peas, you could probably blanch them and freeze dry those out of your garden. But peas are one of the things that I've only grew in my own garden a few times, because it takes a lot of work to get enough peas for dinner. To me, it's just not worth it. I'll stick with green beans if I'm going to grow something like that. Green beans grow thick and easy, and you get a lot of them for a lot less work than peas. Anyway, so I'll just buy the peas. So we'll get them loaded on the trays and get them in there real quick and get them going. Before I get the trays out of the freezer, I need some more parchment. So I need to cut some more parchment papers. That's what these two marks are on the table. I line the metal ruler up with those. And the tape holds it down. I've got my rolls of parchment. And then I can just slide that under. And then pull it out to the edge of this table. And I hold that down. Can't see the edge of that table. Let me move the camera over. All right. So I pull it to the edge of the table, just even with that, and then peel it off. So doing the parchment this way, when we figured it out one time, did the math, it was about 2 cents a sheet. And if we're doing consecutive batches of the same thing, like if we're doing more than one batch of peas, or if I were going to do peas and then corn, dry vegetables, pre-frozen, I would just use the paper a couple of times, because you don't really have to have parchment paper on the trays. I just find it easier for those last little bits on the tray sometimes, and a little bit easier in cleaning the trays if there's anything sticky on there, you know, some of the sugary fruits or something. So we have 2 of these 5-pound bags of peas that we're going to freeze dry. They're Garden Fresh brand, which is what Chef Store carries. And there are other products from that brand I've been pretty happy with, so we'll test these out. So tray 1, and had it in the freezer so it's nice and cold also, so it won't warm up the peas. And one of the pieces of parchment on it. This tray needs to be 1889 to end up with 2.5 pounds. So 1889 is the target. All right, 1889. And we'll kind of level them out after we move them over. Tray 2. This one needs to get to 1881 to be 2.5 pounds, which should be the rest of this bag. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and crush up any of these lumps, the stuck together bits. Okay, so 1891, so that gives about 10 extra grams. So we'll have just barely over 2.5 pounds on that one. Tray 3. $18.76 on that one. And finally, tray 4. 1916. Well, 1914. Those are good peas. Get the thermometers in real quick and get them in the freeze dryer. Doing these, I'm just going to simply kind of tuck them in there. So I don't want them touching the tray because the heater's underneath the tray. And I don't want them too close to the top because the next tray up, the heater is above that. So what I want is I want it to be about 1/3 up from the tray, because that seems to be the last spot to dry. We'll wheel them over and get them in the freeze dryer. Freeze dryer's been pre-cooling for about 50 minutes, and so we'll get the food in. It's down to 0 degrees. So and starting at the bottom with tray 4. And we'll work our way up. Oh, I forgot my thermometer. So now get it sealed back up and get it ready. So got a ring around there already. Little spot there. Let's double check that. I want to make sure I get a ring all the way around. So this time it was over here and a spot right here. Okay, we have a complete ring all the way around, got a good seal, so when it starts in the middle of the night when nobody's here, it'll be sealed well. So we'll come back when it's done in 30 or 40 hours. Don't go away, we'll be right back on the video. The frozen peas are in the last 15 minutes. In fact, actually, they switched to the last 15 minutes about 4 minutes ago, and I added a little bit more time so that it wouldn't shut off until I had time to weigh them. Gonna arrow past the last of it, get them out and get the weights now, and then we'll put them back in for 2 more hours to check to make sure that they've stopped losing weight. So let's get those out. So arrowing past the last of that. You get the drain valve open. Okay. We'll start with tray 1. And right now that's still at 100 degrees, 120 degrees, 110, 112 degrees, and just under 100 degrees. But again, the heaters have been off for about 10 minutes already. Okay, so tray 1. $9.82. So it's gone down about 1,000 grams. Oh, and I'm going to rotate them top to bottom. So I'll get tray 4 out. And it's also $9.82. And I'll put it at the top. And tray 1 at the bottom. So one of the peas fell off a tray. I don't know which tray. And I don't know when, because it was frozen inside. Okay, I'm going to get tray 2. And it's $9.72. And tray 3, $9.68. Okay, and I'll put this one up higher. So tray 3 will go up, and tray 2 will come down. All right. So as usual, we're going to put them back in for 2 more hours and check to see if they lose any weight. If they don't lose any weight, they were dry, and I'll count this amount of time for when they were finished. If it loses weight, then I'll do it again. Okay, more dry time. Close the drain valve, and it's closed. Continue, and I'm going to go ahead and have it go now. All right. Come back and check it in 2 more hours to see if it lost any weight. If it didn't, we'll move them over to bag them. One more thing. So this is the water from the last batch, which was the ham, and it's about 3/4 of a gallon. That's the amount that I like to do for a maximum weight, water weight of a batch. Right now we've been loading everything with 10 pounds regardless of how much water is in it. Normally I wouldn't do that. I would try to limit it to about 6 pounds of water weight. So in other words, 10 pounds of ham is fine, 10 pounds of probably cooked steak is fine, but not so much some of the things that are ending up with 8 or 9 pounds of water out of it, because that's just tough on it. You know, it really bogs down at the end when it has that much water in it. Okay, we'll be back. It's 2 hours later now. The peas have warmed back up, even warmer on all the trays. Going to take them out, see if they lost any weight during that 2 hours. If they didn't lose any weight or extremely small, then they were done, and we'll take them out and bag them. If not, we'll give them a couple more hours again. Let's get them out. Use the down arrow to get past the last of that. I'll get the drain valve open. Okay, got the scale on. And starting with tray 1, which is now on the bottom, let's see what it did. So tray 1, 981, so that's only 1 gram. So tray 2, 972, no change. So far, it's looking like we're gonna take them out. Say tray 3, 967 plus, so it's bouncing up a little bit. So less than 1 gram, a very small fraction. So, and tray 4, 981. Again, less than 1 gram in 2 hours on a tray that will be about 230 grams of product on the trays. So I'm going to hit the no defrost and make it quieter. Each tray has about 230 grams of product on it. Take these over and get them ready to bag. Now, get the defrost fan into place. Pull the thermometer out of the ice underneath. And get the little defrost baffle in. Of course, there's a lot of ways you could defrost your machine. One, you could use the defrost function, which heats up you close it all up and it heats up the trays inside or the shelves and warms it up and melts it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's quick, it does a good job. It's going to use the heaters longer and all the electronics and use a little bit more power perhaps. But if you're in a rush, that might be a good way. Also, you could do that and use the heaters and then just do it a short time just to get it partially defrosted, then pull the rack out and pull the ice out. Next, you could use a fan type of system, and there's lots of ways you could do it. I'm hanging it on the door. You could connect it to the shelves. You could add it to something sticking out of the shelf and clamp it on there. So there's a lot of ways you can do it. Another thing you could do is just simply open the door and wait and let it melt. That's probably going to be the slowest method. Anyway, let's get this. I'm going to move the peas over and then we'll get the time for the batch and the power usage. Because the weight loss had stopped, I'm going to put 2 hours ago as how long it took. So that puts it at 39 hours, 51 minutes. The power usage for the peas is 27.85 kilowatt hours. And I'll reset that so it'll be ready for the next batch. The peas are out. We'll get them weighed, find out what they weigh now, and then get them bagged. I'm hoping to get them 1 pound per bag. You never know. So if they'll fit in a pound, if a pound will fit in the bag, that's the way they'll get bagged. So we'll get the weights and calculate it out and see where we're going with it. Then next we'll get them sealed and put in the bins. So weights next. Tray 1. So we'll get all the thermometers removed and get the current weights. This one's 971, 962, so 959, 971. So it gives me 869 grams total. So that tells me the weight of 10 pounds is now 869. If we divide that by 10, 86.9 grams equals 1 pound. And forgive my sloppy writing. So here's the breakdown so far. So it's 869 grams for the whole 10 pounds. So 86.9 equals 1 pound, 65.2 equals 3/4 of a pound, and 43.5 equals a half pound. I know I won't bag it at anything less than that. I still hope that this will work. I just work out the math right now because I got the calculator out. I might as well figure out the possibilities in case a pound won't fit. So next I need to know how much water would need to be put back in. And if you're just using it simply as peas as a vegetable, you could just put extra water and then strain them out just like you would perhaps when you're cooking frozen peas in water anyway. But if you're putting them in soups or something that you need to know how much water to add to that soup to account for these peas, so you're putting them in dry, then this next calculation would be useful. So I'm going to take the net weight before I started, which was 4,576 grams. I'm going to subtract the current weight, so 869 equals, and that tells us that it was 3,707 grams of water loss. So to get it back to what it was, we need 1/10 of that, or 370.7 grams of water equals 1 pound. And again, even messier. So the water loss was 3707. So for 1 pound, it's 33 370.7 grams of water is needed to get it back to rehydrate it to the same level. For 3/4 of a pound, it's 278, and for a half pound, it's 185 grams of water. So that is what I need for labeling the bags. So I have the bags partially labeled already. I have the batch number, what it is, so peas and frozen, the date that it went into the freeze dryer, so 6/24, so June 24th, 22, and that it needs X amount of water. I'll fill that in as soon as we find out how many will fit in here. So I'm hoping that a pound will fit in here. Tear that bag out. Okay, so I teared the scale out, so now it has a negative weight when I take it off to account for that bag. Now my goal is 1 pound, and that would be 86.9 grams of peas. And with roly-poly peas, I gotta watch out because they're gonna try to go places. So that's already over 3/4 of a pound. I think it will make it, so let's try it. I need another about 13 grams. And peas, I'm going to use the measuring cup. So we use this measuring cup sometimes when we want to just scoop in volumes. But we can also use it for topping things off, especially roly things. So 86.9 is the, oops, there's almost there. And then I need to have a few of them slightly under, a few of them slightly over, unless I can hit them all exact. All right, so a pound will fit. So I'm going to finish labeling the bags for 1 pound, and it's going to be full, but not overfilled. So 1 pound will fit in the quart bag. So there's the rest of the labeling. So now I've got it that it's 1 pound and it needs 370 grams of water. You only need this amount of water exactly, only if you're using it in something that's it's going to be pulling the water out of and you want to have it stay the same. So if you're putting it into a soup or, I don't know, a casserole or something like that, where you need to know how much it is, how much water it's going to draw in, and you're putting it in there dry. Otherwise, you can just put this in a pot of hot water or a measuring cup of hot water and rehydrate it that way. Okay. So I'll get the rest of the bags labeled and I'll be right back. Don't go away. Got them all labeled. Now we can continue bagging. So I'm off by this much. So ideally all of these would have been in there to even it out perfectly. So I've got those few left. I'm just going to shake a couple in each one just to use them up. With all the peas in the 1 quart bags, I'll add the oxygen absorber. I'm using 300 cc oxygen absorbers, so I'll get one in each one and then we'll close them up and then seal them. So I'm going to just kind of slide one down the side a little bit just to keep it out of the way of the seal and zipper area. If you've got the space, you could just toss it in on top. It doesn't really have to be in there. And I don't have any extra room for pushing out a bunch of air. If you have one of the chamber vacuum ones, it would probably do a good job on these, but I don't have any extra room for just pushing it out because it's really close to the top the way I filled them. So I'm kind of pushing them from the middle just to make sure the peas stay down there before I zipper them, because they're trying to get up and out of there as I close it up. Okay, we'll get them heat sealed. Making sure that the top of the bag is nice and smooth, and I've got it at the top of the bag for the seal area. And then just close it down. And I'm going to do that first one twice to make sure that it's completely up to temperature. All right, so completely sealed, nice tight seal at the top with room for 2 more tries down below. Or you'd be able to cut, if you were careful, you could cut it open below the seal and you still have room to reseal it. So with all those sealed, I'm going to add that one more step that I do, which is add a gross weight to each bag. So 111 grams. And I'll write that on the bottom corner of the bag. So I'll get those all on there, and then we'll move over to the bins. Okay, so we'll get these finished and move over there. So the peas are in the bags now. We've used 10 1-quart bags. The peas fit 1 pound per bag. It's perfect. So this is the second item on this set. So we've got the sliced and chopped ham in here. Now we'll add the peas, and then after this is done, as soon as the freeze dryer is defrosted, we'll go on to the next batch down the list, which is fruit again. On this one, we're doing cherries. These are cherries from our tree from a few years ago, and they're for pies. So they have sugar in them and they have thickener in them. We've done this with apples before, and they came out really well, and we've rehydrated them and made apple pie out of them. We've never done the cherries and freeze-dried them, so I'm not really sure how they're going to work. I sure hope they do well, because this is our next batch. I need it to keep the pace up of 1 batch every 2 days, freeze-dried, and the video. And I am days behind on the video, but we'll get there. So we'll move over and get them in the bins. We'll get that bin open and get them in there. So there's the cubed ham from the last time. The oxygen absorbers did their magic and the bags kind of sucked down. Okay, and now we'll add the peas in there. And peas and corn always look like little vacuum packs when they're done. Not everything does, but I think there's just a lot more air in some of these. We'll get those in there, kind of make them a single layer. Second item's in the bin. We'll move on to the next thing.